Hello everyone, thanks for coming today. And my name is Dennis Hwang. I'm a faculty member at the University of Hawaii Sea Grant. And how many people are homeowners here? 1, 2, you're a homeowner? No? Okay, but we're gonna cover the Homeowners Handbook to prepare for natural hazards, and that is good for homeowners and non-homeowners. And we're gonna cover hurricanes, earthquake, and wildfire, okay? So wildfire is a big thing now. And we were just in the Lahaina impact area a few months ago. We're gonna be working with FEMA to assess building performance more and update the Homeowners Handbook, okay? So anyway, here's my contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me by phone or email. Here's the Homeowners Handbook to prepare for natural hazards. It started in 2007. It's gone through 10 print runs with 100,000 copies, and it's in 13 states and countries now. It all started off the Hawaii book. Okay? And you can see that it covers tsunamis, hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, and then the 4th edition covered volcano and climate change. And so we're gonna cover some of that. Okay, you can see some of the partners for the book. So all the major scientific agencies, all the state and county emergency management, and there's a lot of private organizations that were also involved. Some of these companies have been with us since 2007 when the book started. For instance, one of them, Simpson Strong Tide, they're here and they have a booth right here next to us today. So one of the big things that's happened recently is, of course, the wildfire in Lahaina. And here's, in the Homeowners Handbook, we help homeowners determine what their hazard risk is, okay? So whether it be flooding or earthquake or drought, and here, so the second part of the book is the science of different natural hazards, and this is the part for drought. And this is a drought map for August 8, 2023. So does anyone know what happened on August 8, 2023? No? Right, that's right. So you can see at that time, Maui, the west side, the southwest side was in severe drought, and the northwest side was in moderate drought. And so this is the U.S. Drought Monitor. It's put out every week, and this is where you would look up your drought risk. Your drought risk is directly related to your wildfire risk, okay? So, and generally, the greatest risk is on the leeward side of the islands, but any part of Hawaii could be subject to drought and wildfire. So this is Maui, like 10 or 15 years ago, Lahaina, and you could see the historic significance of this waterfront area, a lot of wood structures, and really a beautiful area. It's very sad what happened. Here's more of the Lahaina around 10 or 15 years ago. But if you go back there, we went out there for 2 days in March, and this is what it looks like now. This is one of the shopping centers, and you can see the column that's coming up. That's an elevator shaft to a shopping center, okay? And one of the things that, this is in several reports, there've been a lot of preliminary reports that were put out since the wildfire, and I'm also working on, with FEMA, they're gonna be putting out a major report in the area But one of the things that came out was because of the intense heat, even fire-resistant materials will fail if there's not enough space between the buildings. So you can see in the upper left corner, you can see the steel beams bending, and that's generally, steel is usually thought of as being very fire resistant. And then on the lower right corner, there's like fiber cement siding, which is also believed to be very fire resistant. But if everything is on top of each other, and with these intense winds, it gets so hot, and they thought it was like over thousands of degrees, that even fire-resistant materials, the buildings got damaged. So this is a report by IBHS, stands for Institute of Business and Home Safety, and they saw that you can see on the lower left, there's a wood shed, and then there's a metal shed in gray. And if the buildings are 10 feet apart or less, it's like total loss no matter how the building was built, okay? But once it got more than 20 feet apart, there was more variation. There was total loss, some had minor damage. And then when it was over 30 feet distance apart, there was most of the buildings, no matter how they were built, only had minor damage. So one of the key factors in wildfire resistance is the space itself, okay? But once you have the space, if there is space, then the materials that the building is made of makes a difference. So we're gonna talk about that shortly, okay? Because we're gonna cover some other hazards. And one of them is earthquake. So you being in Hawaii County have the greatest number of hazards to deal with. And Thomas goes, yeah, thanks, all right? But that's just the way the geology is. And you can see for earthquake risk, the northern part of Hawaii County is very vulnerable to earthquake risk, and then the southern part is even greater, okay? So we're gonna talk about what we could do for earthquake risk also, okay? But of course, our greatest risk is for hurricanes. So you can see this is a Niki coming from the east, and then it turns north suddenly, and it hits the island of Kauai. They estimate that if Niki had turned north 6 hours earlier, instead of 6 or 7,000 houses being damaged or destroyed, it would be 50,000. Okay, so very serious. And then also in 2018 we had Hurricane Lane. Okay, doing almost the same thing. It looked like Niki was going to do to Kauai. It was coming from the south, approaching Oahu, and if it actually hit as a Category 2, there's like a FEMA hazard study that indicated over 50,000 houses displaced, and $27 billion in damages. So we're going to talk about hurricane preparedness, and when you prepare for a hurricane, you're preparing for a lot of other hazards also. So these are just some quick tips, but then we're going to go more into housing. Okay, so of course you want your emergency supplies, 14 days, non-perishable food and water. Go visit all of the booths here to figure out what should be in your supplies. And then they also want an evacuation kit if evacuation is part of your emergency plan. And then for your emergency plan, you should know your hazard zone, okay? So everyone should know where they're gonna shelter, and it may be different for a hurricane or a tsunami, okay? We're gonna cover this later. And also get emergency alerts. So sign up with the Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency to get emergency alerts. And then the key thing we're going to cover is to work on your house, do a lot of simple things, clear debris and clutter and junk around your yard, clear the gutters, downspouts and drainage ways, make sure water could get off your property, maintain the house, prevent wood rot, termite damage, and corrosion. If your house is older than 1994 on Hawaii County, you should tie it down. Make sure you have hurricane clips to tie the roof to the wall. And then there's some other things in the book. A lot of this sounds like a lot to do, but it's just a continuous process where you prepare a little at a time, but if you're always preparing, then things will fall into place, okay? We're gonna cover a little bit about insurance. What's the difference between fire insurance versus hurricane versus flood? And like I said, continuously improve and strengthen your house, okay? So get emergency alerts. So go to Hawaii County, their website, and get the Everbridge app to get emergency notifications. These are either text or emails, and they'll notify you of impending hazards and how to respond. Okay. Now we're going to cover a little bit about hurricane science. So this is important. Like this is let me just go over here. Can I move?
You're okay.
Okay. So this is a Niki hitting Kauai. Okay. It's traveling 30 miles per hour this way, and the winds are rotating 120 miles per hour counterclockwise. So in the right front quadrant, the forward speed and the rotational speed add together, and it's 150 miles per hour in the right front quadrant. In the left front quadrant, the two speeds subtract, so it's 90 miles per hour in the left front quadrant. So it's almost like a category 4 in the right front quadrant and a category 1 in the left front quadrant. So that's something to consider. You know, a lot of people on Oahu, they say, oh, Niki wasn't too bad, you know, I'm prepared for Niki. But Oahu didn't experience the full impact. And even on Kauai, there's a big difference, like how an area here performed versus area over here. Okay, and then the second thing is the storm surge is going to be on the right, always on the right front quadrant, because that's where the water is being pushed onto the shoreline. Okay, so this will play a role in your planning. So I'm going to play this video. Okay. See this? Okay, so that's hurricane wind. So when you plan for a hurricane, you got to plan for storm surge, flooding, and wind, okay? And that house, that was on Oahu in 2021. It wasn't even in a hurricane, okay? It was just at a localized condition from topographic speed up. But if there's an actual hurricane that hits Oahu or Hawaii County, it's going to be, that type of wind is going to be over a large area, subjecting thousands of houses to that type of wind. And if the house is not prepared, that's what's going to happen, okay? So to create your emergency plans, you need to know your hazard zone, and you need to know, like for tsunami, okay, you use the tsunami evacuation maps. And here's the link to the tsunami evacuation maps. Here's the link to the flood maps. Here's a link to the storm surge maps. So you need to make a plan for a tsunami. So for tsunami, if they call a tsunami warning, You're supposed to evacuate the red area and go into yellow and green. If they call an extreme tsunami warning, you're supposed to evacuate the red and yellow and go into the green, okay? So for a flood map, here are the flood maps and the storm surge maps. For a hurricane, you need to remember the triple threat: flooding, storm surge, and wind, okay? So this is the south shore of Oahu. The flood map indicates this peninsula is safe, but the storm surge indicates that it's not safe. But the flood map indicates that there's inland flooding, so that's at risk, but the storm surge map indicates it's safe. That's why you need to look at both, okay? And you're gonna use this for planning purposes, okay? Because you're gonna say, oh, am I here? Do I need to evacuate? And the answer is maybe, you know? So, because you know, depending on the situation. But always use this for planning, but always wait for instructions from local emergency management first, because this storm surge map is a worst case scenario. For instance, this assumes that the right front quadrant of the hurricane is gonna hit this area, but it may not, right? So use these for planning purposes. Okay, the other thing you need to look at is wind, okay? Is your house strong enough for the wind, okay? So remember the story of the three little pigs, straw, wood, and stone? Okay, single wall house, double wall house, stone house, okay? Or essentially concrete or CMU wall, okay? So inherently, this is stronger than this, is stronger than this. And then on here, it says unsafe, marginal, good, better, and best. So this table is in the Homeowners Handbook. The goal is to find out where your house is in this row and move it to the right with a lot of the simple measures that are in the handbook, okay? So, for instance, is anyone who has a single wall house? Okay, you do? Okay, so your goal would be to put it in good condition, add hurricane clips, and go visit our booth later, and then you could do some of the other things. You may be able to, if you do those things, you may be able to go for a category 1 or 2 hurricane. Now for a single wall house, you can make it a lot stronger, but you could only make it so strong, okay? So we don't want you to, like, if it's something really major, like a category 3 or 4, you should probably plan to shelter somewhere else, okay? That's how you would use the table. Okay, so we're going to show you how the difference in building performance for wind and how when it was built, when a house was built. Okay, so this is Hurricane Harvey hitting Texas in 2017, and okay, this is Rockport in Texas in 2017. You can see number 4 is the house is totally destroyed. 3 major damage, 2 minor damage, 1 no damage. So we're going to look at those and see why this happened. Okay, so the 4, you can see in the house, the 4, it's destroyed house. 3 major damage, the roof deck is coming off the trusses. 2 moderate damage, that's where the edge of the roofing is coming off. And 1 is no damage. So why did that house have no damage, right? So it was built with modern building codes, it has a continuous load path connection, a strong roof, we're gonna cover a lot about roofing, and window protection, okay? What is a continuous load path connection? So that is like, you can imagine you take a chain, throw it over the roof of the house and tie it down on either side. Okay, that's holding the roof down to the foundation, but a continuous load path connection does the same thing, but it's all internal through the building codes, okay? So, and the weakest part is that roof to the wall connection. You saw that video, the roof flying off? That's because it didn't have a connection from the roof to the wall. So you need to tie the roof to the wall, the second floor to the first floor, the wall to the bottom plate, and you're gonna need to anchor the sill plate to the foundation, okay, so what's gonna happen is, that's why it's so important. I ask people how strong their house is, and I usually ask when it was built, okay? Because before 1994 on Hawaii County, there was no hurricane clips, no load path, no window coverings, okay? And then after 94, Hawaii County changed it to require both hurricane clips and a load path. And that was a result of a building code change after Niki in 92, right? And now, under the current building code, they require a load path with clips to tie the roof to the wall and window protection or a safe room if you're in the windborne debris region, okay? So we're gonna cover, the point is though, even your house, the houses in red, you could do retrofits that move your house up the ladder and make it stronger, and some of them are not that hard to do, okay? So this shows again why you need to tie the roof to the wall. You can see two pictures on the top left are houses in the Niki after the roofs blew off, and the one on the right, you just saw the video a few minutes ago, right? Okay, so here's a retrofit in the handbook. Tie each one of the trusses to the wall of a single wall house. It'll take 2 Saturdays and $300 of material costs. If you're handy, if you're not handy, hire a contractor. It should take around $2,100, $2,500. Okay? And this is what the clip looks like. It's made by Simpson Strong Tie. You could come visit our booth later after the talk and see what some of these clips look like. And our booth is right near Simpson's booth. Okay? And in the handbook, there's step-by-step instructions on how to do that retrofit. And it's a pretty simple retrofit. We think about 6,000 to 7,000 houses around the state have done this retrofit, okay? Okay, who has a post and pier house? Does anyone have a post? You do? Yes. Okay, so what happens with the post and pier house is there's a large concrete block and then a small concrete block. There's a termite pan above it and then a post. And generally, that's not tied together. It's all held by friction or gravity, okay? So when there's a hurricane or an earthquake, and it's important to know that if you prepare for a hurricane, you're helping to prepare for an earthquake and vice versa, because you want the load path for both, okay? So if there's a hurricane and an earthquake and it's not tied down, it's gonna get knocked off its block and it's gonna be damaged. So there's a retrofit in the handbook on how to do, I'm not gonna go over it in detail, but it's in the book, step by step, and if you wanna go into more detail, just come by, visit our booth later. Okay. Yeah, what's that?
Not you saying that you gotta put a slab down?
Usually, for houses slab on grade, they don't have that problem. But this is for the ones that are elevated, yeah, on post and pier. Okay. Now I got to mention. So this is a house on Oahu. It has a new load path, 1956. With the house has been retrofitted. The hurricane clips tie the roof to the wall, and all the posts have been retrofitted. Now there's a tricky part though for Hawaii County, because you guys are in a different seismic zone than Oahu, okay? So the earthquake risk is a little greater, and what the retrofit And this is, you know, I'm not going to go into much detail on this, but for Hawaii County, they also recommend that you do some shear walls to prevent what's called racking, where the building goes back and forth like this, which could be caused by either hurricane wind or an earthquake or overturning. These other things are primarily caused by wind, but this is the one that you want to deal with earthquake. So, so if you're interested in that retrofit, again, contact us. We're not going to go in detail for now. Okay, the other thing for a hurricane wind, okay, this is why you want to protect your windows. You don't want to use masking tape. You don't want to open your windows to try and equalize the pressure, okay? So on the left, there's an envelope that's a rain and wind-resistant envelope that's intact. On the right, there's a breach. When there's a breach, there's internal pressurization, which will double the uplift pressure on your roof, and it will make it more likely that your roof will fly off. You already saw some examples of the roofs flying off, and a lot of times it's a sequence. It doesn't always happen this way, but it happens very often where there's a breach of the envelope and then the roof flies off, okay? So in the book, there's 10 different ways to protect your windows. There's roll down, accordion shutters. This is a house in Kamaki on Oahu. There's hurricane fabric, and we have an example of this at our booth. This is for larger, unusually shaped windows. It works similar to, say, catching a golf ball at a driving range, a net that catches, so the work to catch debris. And then there's plywood, which is the cheapest and most readily available, but it's also heavy, yeah? There's polycarbonate panels, which are just as strong as plywood, but much lighter, okay? So our goal is to try and figure out how to get the polycarbonate panels to Hawaii County. Because on Oahu, they're readily available at Hardware Hawaii, but we'll try and work maybe to get them at HPM, yeah. Okay, so the bottom line is there are 10 different ways to protect your windows. The most expensive is impact-resistant windows that I covered. Oh, this is impact-resistant windows. This is what they use in Florida. It's always in place. It's like, it looks like just regular glass, but it's actually like, it has to pass an impact test, and it's a 9-pound 2x4 going at 34 miles per hour, okay? So, but this has the advantage of always in place, and it also provides burglar protection, but it's more expensive. So in terms of window protection, the most expensive is impact-resistant windows, the least is plywood, and the trade-off is time to deploy. Okay? So if anyone is interested in any of these, come by our booth later, and we can discuss that, okay? So roofing is the key part to your house, okay? You can't have a strong house if you don't have a strong roof. And the roof, you have to think of it, you have to plan for it, for a hurricane wind, flooding, and now fire, okay? So we're gonna cover all of that, okay? So you want again, strong roof, it's gotta be tied down to the foundation as a load pad. You gotta make sure the roof deck is attached to the trusses, the shingles are wind rated and they don't blow off. You wanna make sure that your roof is sealed so if there's heavy rain, it doesn't leak. The worst thing is have a leaking roof. You want your roof to be cool, right? To reflect heat. The cooler the roof, the cooler your house will be. Now you want your roof to be fire resistant, okay? Class A roofing material. So for any roof, when there's hurricane winds, you can see this lower diagram, right here, okay? So the wind forces on the corners of the roof are 3 times greater than the inside. And on the edges, it's 2 times greater than the inside. So anything you do on your roof, you need to plan for that, okay? So, so this is the Kapoho area after Hurricane Isel, Tropical Storm Isel. Okay, this is before Kapoho got impacted by lava, but this was Isel, and it hit as a tropical storm, strong tropical storm. You can see the roof damage is being initiated at the corners like you would expect it to. And the shingles are coming off the edges like you would expect it to. So when you look at roofing, you know, you gotta make sure your roof doesn't blow off, so tie your roof to the wall. You gotta make sure the plywood deck stays on the trusses, so we're gonna cover that. You gotta make sure that if your shingles blow off, your roof doesn't leak, and make sure the wall covering stays on. So we're just gonna cover some of these. So is anyone gonna re-roof their place? I know we already encountered 1 or 2 people at this fair that said they were gonna re-roof their house. But a lot of times people re-roof when either the roof has reached the end of its useful life or they put solar in, okay? So if you're gonna re-roof, a lot of times they take off the shingles and it exposes the roof deck, and at that time it's good to reattach the roof with ring shank nails. This is supposedly a simple retrofit that may add like 5 to 10% of the cost of a roof job, but it'll make your roof much stronger. Okay. In terms of when the shingles blow off, a lot of times there's joints in between the plywood. Okay, you can see the light coming through the joints of the plywood, and during a hurricane, that could often lead to leaking in the roof, from the roof. So this is an example of the house that had leaking from that situation. The water came down, ponded along the ceiling, came down along the drywall, and then you have all that insulation and drywall, which is very porous, hard to dry out, and it had to be removed. So in the handbook, we tell people to seal their roof. So if you have a new roof or you're gonna re-roof, there's 2 different methods to do it. One is you take this self-adhering modified bitumen layer, roll it along the edge of the roof like this here, and that will seal your roof. The other way is instead of taking a continuous layer, just use the self-adhering asphalt tape and run it along the joints. Okay? For shingles, make sure to account for the increased wind pressure on the corners and edges. So like this house, it has extra dabs of asphalt cement along the edges of the roof, okay? So now we're going to Lahaina, because we're talking about roofing too, but we're also now talking about wildfire. So has anyone seen this? This is called the Miracle House. So they go, wow, how did this house survive? And everything around it has been burned. So what happened is, one, it had defensible space. Remember, you need defensible space. So it had like a road on that side, an empty lot on this side, the ocean on this side. The only thing that threatened it was this house here. So it did get charred over here, but if you look at the house, one, it had defensible space, but also they had just renovated it, and also they had a metal corrugated roof. Metal roofing performs very well during a fire, okay? So, and any roofing material you put on, it would be good to put on Class A roofing material. So when we were in Lahaina, what we were looking at is, you know, because there were large areas that were damaged, and it was hard to make, determine everything going on. But what we were doing was looking at houses that were like islands of resistance or resilience that stood out. And like this house here is this house here. This is left is before and right is after And you can see why did this house do well? One, it had defensible space, but they just re-roofed with Class A fire material, shingles, okay? And they had a rock wall instead of a wood fence. Like they had a wood fence, right? The wood fence could catch fire and then spread along and catch everything else along there. And then the house was CMU walls, not wood, right? So the other thing that they did was they used to have a wood-shaped roof, but they replaced it with the Class A shingles. That was like a few months before. And you could see when we just did simple fire test, you know, this is the wood shape that they used to have on their roof. And we just subjected it to 1 minute of flame, 1 inch away, you know, not really scientific test, but just to show like what is more combustible. And this one you could see is starting to burn and go through, whereas this material here did well, okay? One of the things, so for your roofing, clear your gutters, okay? We actually, my wife and I actually did this last weekend. So, okay, so, yeah, so clear your gutters. One, for a hurricane, it'll make sure water could drain off your roof and drain off your property. And two, during drought, this will dry out and become combustible material that could threaten your house, okay? Okay, so some wildfire tips, defensible space. You'll hear more about this. I'm gonna go over this real quick because you'll hear a talk from Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization shortly, in an hour or so. Roofing material is important. Metal or Class A fire-rated shingles, non-combustible building materials. Get rid of combustible materials under your, if you have an elevated house and there's things that you can store it underneath there, get rid of that. You should have fire extinguishers, fire alarm, get it, but regardless, even if you're prepared, have a go kit and get emergency notifications and get ready to go if you need to. You know, you can't, if it's a really bad fire, you just sometimes need to go, okay? So, hurricane, we're gonna cover insurance really quick. Okay, so homeowners, renters insurance, that's one. Hurricane insurance, flood insurance. Those three types of insurance are different. So homeowners, renters covers theft, windstorms. Say you have like strong winds of like 20 or 30 miles per hour and causes damage. That's what we'll cover, but it won't cover a hurricane, okay? And then fire, and risk is considered in the premium for your insurance. Whether you're brick or CMU or wood framing, you're built in local fire protection. Okay, so contrast that with hurricane insurance and flood insurance. So I think every house in Hawaii should have hurricane insurance, because no matter how strong your house, there's always residual risk. If you get water damage from the top down, think of that, that's when your hurricane insurance is covered. And the water damage from the bottom up, that's when you need flood insurance, okay? Flood insurance, you'll need it, say if you're in an A or a V zone in the flood, if you look at the flood maps, or you're in A and a V zone, or historically your area has flooded. If you're not near a coast or stream, but your area has flooded in the past historically, you should consider flood insurance, because it'll be cheaper. And the last thing covering is when you do these retrofits that we have in the handbook, it'll reduce the risk on your property so that, and it depends on the insurance carrier though. Roof to wall connections, 10% discount. Windows, 15 to 18% discount on your premium. Wall to foundation, 10 to 12%. A lot of times it's cumulative, so it could be up to 30% discount for the retrofits, okay? So that's it. I think we're out of time.